It's pretty cool to experiment with, but I don't play with it too much. So this is software-defined radio. It is free. It's called HD SDR, and you can just Google that, and you can build a Tony Parks kit. You can also Google Tony Parks, P-A-R-K-S, and he has a bunch of kits available, all less than $100, and they work absolutely fantastic. And you're looking at it here. They're pretty easy to build. All you need skills, and you can be on HF. They're only 1 watt transmit, but you know me, I'm a QRP guy, so and this works just fine. So and they're incredibly sensitive radios once you build them. If you build them neatly and correctly, they're very sensitive, and they work just fine. And it's a nice way to get into HF very inexpensively. So, wow, these guys are, so, you know, these are the guys that live in Louisiana who live next door to each other, and they're swamping the, so every one of these peaks here is somebody talking. And you can spend, you know, all evening just going from station to station and listening to a bunch of people talking. Okay. Any questions on SDR radio? I just wanted you to know that it existed and what it looked like. So this is a waterfall. You can see where a lot of traffic is, and the little crosshairs tells you what frequency they're on. And as you can see, it's very, very, and you can see a lot of them at the same time. So you can shrink the spectrum, you can increase it, you can move to side. You can see the whole spectrum at one time if you so desire. You can slow it down so you can analyze what's happening. Again, a little bit out of my area. I don't play with this too much, but it's pretty cool. You can record the conversations. So it's okay. It's good. It's a good way to find people. You don't have to hunt for anybody. So like I know this guy is doing something, so I could just move my cursor here, and since I'm on lower sideband, this is where I would be transmitting. If I go to upper sideband, so this is where I am, and as you can see, I switched to upper sideband, so I'm using a lot of bandwidth here, relatively speaking. If you look at the frequencies, it's not too bad. If I switch to, so this is on the upper side of the band. If I go to low sideband, you see it's on this side, and this takes a little bit more compressed, so you can play with that. And this is my center frequency. That's the frequency I'm trying to reach.
Hey, Joe, your screen froze.
Excuse me?
Yeah, your screen froze. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's sending a lot of data, so GoToMeeting doesn't do well when you send video over. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But anyway, so that's pretty much software-defined radio. Okay, and I used to give a class on it, and then I kind of, to be honest with you, lost interest on it a little bit. So anyway, I like working the radio the old-fashioned way. It's just the way it is. Okay. I think we were finishing up chapter 6, if I'm not mistaken, right? Okay. We talked about these last codes. It's 73, never 73s. Ladies, 88, love and kisses. Gentlemen, I suggest you not use that. Let's see. Antenna checks, radio checks. You can ask anybody at any time for a radio check. For my buddy out there in Wyoming, man, oh man, that's pretty far from a repeater. That's a ways. You can make a general call when you ask for a radio check. So you would just say your call sign, W2BMP, radio check. And if anybody's around, they will certainly give you a radio check. We do that a lot just to identify, make sure our stuff is working correctly. Okay. Okay. You're supposed to keep, you're not required anymore, but it's interesting to keep a logbook. A lot of the software you can buy, it's all digital. If you Google amateur radio or ham radio logbooks, there's only about 7 million of them. Pick the one that you like. They're all free. Okay. Pick the one that you like. Knock yourself out. And I like logging. I like logging the long distance calls. Okay. When you do that, you get a QSO card. That's what these look like. I have a whole bunch of them on my wall. And it's nice to be able to exchange QSO cards. We used to do it by snail mail. Not done anymore. Now it's all done electronically. A logbook of the world, ECW. There's a million services that'll do it. Very inexpensive. A couple of dollars, I think, a month. I think it's maybe $15 or $20 a year, and you save on the postage. So that's what that is. Okay. All right, cool. Band plans, we talked about it. This is the general band plan for 2 meters. Not needed for the exam, but just so you get an idea of where things are on the 2 meter band. They try to follow this as much as they possibly can. Do they really follow it? Not really. Yes, go ahead. There's a question.
So this video, we couldn't see anything on the screen. Is it screen share?
Yeah. Didn't I share the screen? You don't see anything on the screen? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, we can see it now. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Let me know if I stop sharing the screen. I have 3 screens in my office, so I'm trying to move the chat window so I can see more chats. So I put it on a different monitor. All right. Anyway, when we want to talk long distance, it's called the DX. So DX is short for long distance, and that's a whole nother thing in and of itself. We know what RTTY is. We discussed it. RTTY is digital mode, just like CW. Beacons are stations, 100 watts maximum, and if you can hear them, that's what they do. Okay. Let's see. We talked about this. Weak signals, normally CW and single sideband are considered weak signals, but they actually travel pretty far, and they're pretty cool. Satellites always transmit on one band, or not always. Most commonly transmit on one band, and they receive on another. The most common is 2 meter 440. So you'll either receive on 2 meter and transmit on 440, or receive on 70 centimeter 440, or receive on 2 meter. Simplex is when we don't use a repeater. We just tune in a frequency and off we go. Okay. And repeaters, you guys are all experts on repeaters, right? So what's the, let's see, let me pick on somebody at the bottom of the list here. Vicki. Hey, Vicki, are you there? Her phone isn't lit up. I don't know if she's there or not.
Yes, I am.
Hi, Vicki. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Vicki, so we want to talk to a repeater. What's the 3 pieces of information we need to talk to a repeater?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's easy.
It is.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is I want to hear them, right? That makes sense, right?
Just let you know where they are.
Yeah. So we want the receiving frequency, right? It's number 1. Number 2, we want to know. Remember, on a repeater, we transmit on one frequency and we receive on another frequency, and that differential is called the, say, offset. Say offset. Say it.
Offset, yes.
Yeah. Oh, great. Good choice. Offset. So that's the difference between the transmit and the receive. And that's about 600 on 2 meter and about 5,000 on 70 centimeter. And then we need the key, right? Get into the door, and that's called.
I'm not sure.
All right. Think of private lock. What are the initials for private lock? Say PL tone.
Not sure, Joe.
All right, it's a PL tone.
Okay.
Okay, private lock, PL tone, is also known as CTCSS. So you need those three pieces of information. Okay. All right, cool. Somebody didn't put their phone on mute. David.
Sorry.
David. Oh, no worries. And the last thing is control links, and that's what those numbers are for on your radio. What they do is using those tones, you can connect things together. You can connect repeaters to stations and stations to repeaters and repeaters to repeaters. You can do all sorts of things if you have the right codes, okay? And those codes, that digital, what you perceive as digital, it's actually analog, is called control linking, okay? All right, cool. Calling frequencies and beacons. We know that beacons just transmit a continuous tone, 100 watts. Calling frequencies are the most commonly used frequency on a particular band. All right. So here, okay, on 2 meter, this is the calling for. Oh, if I could do this, it would be great. And this is the guy right here. That's the national calling frequency. This guy here, 146.520. And if you just want to talk to anybody, you can go on 146.520 and say CQ, CQ, CQ. Why can I say CQ? Because I'm not using a repeater. The only time I don't use CQ is when I'm on a repeater, a known repeater. Okay? So every band has them, and you can look them up. The ARRL has them, and a million other sites on the web has that. Okay? All right, cool. Any questions? Are we good? We're going to go through these actually pretty quickly because you really already know this stuff. Okay? How to make a contact. Does anybody want me to go over how to make a contact on both the repeater and HF simplex? HF and simplex are the same protocol. Repeater, I think we did that on Thursday. We had one of our young ladies call Mark, and we spoke to Jerry because Mark wasn't around. So anybody need me to go over this? You okay with this?
If you could quickly do it?
Sure, no problem. Okay, so let's tune in. Mark. Let's talk to Mark. Okay, so was that Vijay? Was that you who asked the question, sir?
No, Armando.
No, I don't have any question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So who asked us? Who asked me to go over it?
Armando?
All right, Armando. We're going to talk to my buddy Mark. Okay.
Okay.
And as you can hear, his call sign is N2FLF. November 2, Foxtrot, Lima, Foxtrot. So, what do you think, Armando? What am I going to say? How am I going to call him?
You're going to use his, that November 2 Foxtrot, Lima, Foxtrot?
Right.
Ask for
him. Yeah. And after that, what am I going to say?
That's what I don't recall if you say this is and then say yours or...
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can say this is W2BMP, or sometimes after a while you get tired and just say your call sign. So let's give that a shot. Armando, let's see if you get to talk to Mark tonight. Hold on. N2FLF, this is Whiskey 2, Bravo Mike Papa. And that little beep is because it's a repeater. Hey, Mark, how are you? I have one of my students here, Armando, wants to say hello. So say hello to Armando. Armando, where are you located?
In South Florida.
Armando's from South Florida, Mark.
A whopping 45 degrees, which has been really the warmest day in about a month or so.
Roger that, Mark. Hold on. We're going to see if Armando knows how to sign off now. Hang in there, Mark. Thank you. All right, Armando. So we want to say goodbye to Mark. What are we going to say?
Ooh,
We're going to say our call sign, right? Whiskey 2 Bravo Mike Papa. And
okay.
then we'll say, what's the abbreviation for best regards?
Was that 7-3?
Yeah, that's it. So what we would say is Whiskey 2 Bravo Mike Papa, 7-3 Mark, W2BMP clear, which means I'm gone. All right? Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try that. Hey, Mark, thanks very much for the quick chat. Armando says 7-3 W2BMP. We're going to be clear on your final.
Okay, Joe, Armando, have a good one. Great hobby. You're going to enjoy it. Take care. Good luck. And 2 SLS. 73.
Roger, Mark. Thanks again. Have a good evening, sir. Okay, so that's repeater, Armando. No problem, right? Now we're going to tune. Let's get fancy here, okay? Now we're going to tune simplex. We're going to go to a simplex frequency. So no repeater involved, right? And I want to talk to them. So I'll talk. So on a repeater, you usually know who you want to talk to, or you ask for a break-in, right? So if the frequency was full and there was somebody talking, let's see if I can find somebody talking here. There's always somebody talking. Well, maybe not. If I wanted to just break in on a repeater, I would wait till the conversation stops, and then I would just say my call sign. I'd hit the transmit button and say Whiskey 2 Bravo Mike Papa, and let go, and then they will respond, breaking station acknowledged, which means they acknowledge you. And then they may not get your call sign. And then when it's your turn, they'll say breaking station, pick it up, and then you'll pick it up, and off you go. That's for repeater etiquette, right? And these are etiquette rules. They're not, they're not laws or regulations. It's just the way things are done. On a simplex, it's just you and me, right? Actually, it's just you, and you'll talk to anybody, right? So if I want to talk to anybody, what do I say?
QCQCQ.
That's it. CQ, CQ, CQ. It means general call. I'll talk to anybody. So that's the cue for everybody else in the world to say hello to you. Okay? So you use that on simplex frequencies, so 2 meter, 70 centimeter, where there is no repeater, and is the standard for all HF. So on high frequency, you never know who you're going to talk to. So you would say CQ, CQ, CQ 3 times, okay? And then your call sign, W2BMP. CQ, 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 W2BMP. You do it twice. And then sooner or later, somebody's going to talk to you, and it's like playing roulette. You don't know what's going to come up. So you may talk to a guy, 100 miles away, or you may talk to somebody on the other side of the planet. Okay? There are, if you look under DX, under ham radio DX, there's a million sites that give you real-time information on who is where, what frequencies are active, and what's happening. So if you tune a specific HF frequency, for example, 7150, and I just picked that number out of the air, a lot of people are talking from all over the world. So there are many web resources that tell you exactly what's happening. What DX is long distance. Okay? Does that help, Armando? Did I clear it up?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, cool. So the first thing we want to do is we want to listen, always listen, to make sure that we don't want to interrupt somebody's conversation. You wouldn't like it if they did it to you. And they talk about this stuff, okay? Repeaters often add a short courtesy beep, and what that means is it received your signal, and it's sending it out, okay? All right, cool.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
So when you're talking on simplex and you do CQ and you give your call sign, then do they say breaking station acknowledge also at that point, or what do they say to you?
No, they'll just answer you unless there's a conversation going. So if you log on to if you tune into a simplex station and there's a bunch of people, you'll just say, and you hear a bunch of people, it's the same protocol as a repeater. You would just hit the transmit button, say your call sign, the nearest guy to you will probably get your signal, and it'll say breaking station acknowledged. If there's nobody else on the air and you say CQ, 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 they'll come back with their call sign first and then your call sign. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, no problem. So again, the policy is CQ, CQ, CQ. This is, a lot of people drop off that this is, okay? And that's the way you would make the contact. That protocol is the same whether you use RTTY, PSK31, any digital modes, CW, Morse code, or phone, okay? That is the same protocol no matter what. Hey, Tony, how are you? I haven't talked to Tony in a long time.
Which Tony?
I don't know. I got two of them. I got whoever's mic is on, that Tony.
Okay, that's me.
All right. Hey, Tony, I have a question because I forgot. There's one band that you can't use phone on. No. All right, good man. Good man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay? Big no-no. Okay. All right, cool. So they go into taking turns and breaking in, blah, 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 blah. So there are frequencies that are designed for rag chewing. Oh, my goodness gracious. They'll talk about anything and everything. You name it. Car racing, needlepoint, I mean everything in the whole world. So you'll see. It's part of the fun. You'll pick up some frequencies that are strictly rag chewing, and they spend their entire lives just there talking. Okay? All right, and simplex, so you know what that's like on, so you know what that's all about. And you always want to give breaking stations a chance, especially if they're mobile, okay? If they're mobile, you always want the proper thing to do is always give a mobile station the right-of-way. And they'll identify themselves to you. For example, if I'm in my car, I'll say W2BMP mobile. So mobile means I need to call somebody, or I'm having some difficulty or something else. So they're not in the comfort of their homes. So the proper protocol is to give mobile stations the right-of-way. All right? And remember I taught you that, right? So now come to my club and explain it to them, okay? All right, cool. It's very easy to get involved in your conversations, especially when you're talking to somebody very far away, and sometimes we forget to yield right-of-way to mobile stations, okay? And then repeater access tones, those are the PL tones, also known as the CTCSS. Okay, it's just a lock. There are 50 of them. Every repeater will give you the PL tone, okay? So you need that in order to unlock the repeater, okay? All right, and they go through this whole big deal, but that's really all it is, okay?
Joe, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that when using the repeater, you never use CQ, CQ, CQ?
Correct.
So if I get on to, let's say, the Bolingbrook repeater, I have to know who I want to talk to?
No, the way around that, and it's just a protocol thing, so it's just going to make you look professional, right? So if you just want, you'll talk to anybody, but you're on a repeater, you can't really use CQ, CQ, CQ. They'll know you're brand new. So you'll say W2BMP on frequency, and that's it. And then wait for somebody to respond, okay? Or W2BMP monitoring, W2BMP on frequency. On frequency is the most professional way of doing it. And then somebody will come on, and I have no doubt will talk to you within 15 seconds. Okay?
Okay. All right.
All right, cool. No problem. So we talked about these control links, and if you have control link authority on your repeater, it's a secret code. you can do all sorts of things. You can make your repeater do anything. Sit up, roll over, beg, whatever. Tune into other stations, auxiliary stations you can take over by remote control, and it's those tones that are emitted on your radio when you press the keys, okay? All right, cool. Auto patch, not used so much anymore, but you should know about it. Automatic patch is when you can use your repeater to call somebody. So heaven forbid your cell phone battery dies, okay? What would you do, okay? Well, a way to make a phone call to somebody who doesn't have an amateur radio is to use auto patch. Not all repeaters have auto patch. Most of them, I think, still do. We do, certainly. And you can create, using a code, a patch, and you can actually dial somebody's number. Okay? It varies, the procedure varies from repeater to repeater, but once you hook up to a repeater, you can find out if it has auto patch in case you need it, and use that. Okay, it's like marine radio. If anybody's familiar with marine radios, you can use the marine operator to make a call to a landline. I wouldn't suggest it marine radio because it's incredibly expensive, but it's free on repeaters. Okay. All right, cool. There are special repeaters that are closed repeaters, and they are for Aries, for CERT, that kind of stuff, Skywarn, and you need permission to use them, and you're only allowed to use them on in certain times. Okay. And I think we talked about these guys, digital repeater systems, IRLP, Echolink. I explained that one to you. That is, you can use it on your smartphone. And I don't know if you guys have downloaded that yet, but it's very cool. You can't use it until you have a call sign, but it's very, very cool. IRLP, you have to look up a node number, and you need to know that because it is a question on the test. So which digital protocol requires a node, N-O-D-E number, and that is IRLP. Okay. And then this is a proprietary digital one from Yaesu, and of course ICOM couldn't be left, another major manufacturer could not be left out in the cold. They came out with D-Star. My honest opinion of both of these, it's okay. All right, and they talk about that. None of this stuff is on the exam. The only thing that is on the exam is that IRLP requires a node number. Okay, it's a 4-digit number, and that allows you to connect to their computer, which then sends your signal either through a repeater or the internet, voice over IP, whatever, out the other side. Okay. You will notice a delay. There's a 1 or 2 second delay if you use either IRLP and Echolink. All right. So Echolink conversation, you'll press the little transmit button on your iPhone or your Android phone. They won't hear you for about 1 or 2 seconds. You let go of the transmit button, they'll receive it, so there's a little bit of a latency there. Okay, be ready for that. All right, cool. Let's go. Nets we talked about, right? Did we talk about nets? Yes. So there's a million nets all over the place, emergency one, social, traffic, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, 2 types of nets, formal and informal. If it's formal, there's a net control station. That person is responsible for bringing you in, taking you out. On emergency nets, you may not leave the net without permission. So in case, heaven forbid, of an emergency, you join a net. As soon as you join the net, they consider you a resource. They list you, there's a form that we fill out. They list you as a resource, and they'll ask you where you are, and more information. Are you CPR trained? Are you, what skill sets do you have if you're not already registered with Aries? And you may not leave that net without permission. If you do, you're going to have very upset people because once you join an emergency net, they consider you a resource, okay? Like all of that stuff, right? So,
Joe,
yes.
what if you join the net and then you are mobile and your travel takes you outside of the range of where their repeater will pick you up? Do you still have to say you're leaving the area or anything along that line?
Yeah, because there are people on the fringes of that net that for you. So even if you're outside of the coverage area of that repeater, the proper thing to do is to make a reasonable effort to tell net control that you're no longer in that area. Okay? And if the repeater can't hit you, then the next closest person to you will relay the message. That's done very frequently. Okay? Again, you're on the net, you're there to help, right? You're taking care of yourself and your family first, of course. You're on the net. Maybe they need ice cubes and you have your ice machines working, or maybe they need some supply, or maybe they need whatever, matches, whatever. They immediately list you as a resource, right? So important to know. We talked about radiograms, right? I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm running 3 of these classes at the same time, so if I didn't discuss this, I'm going to go through this. If I didn't discuss this with you or you have a question on it, certainly let me know. This is what a radiogram looks like. And as message keepers, we take the message word for word for word for word, and we spill it back out exactly the same way without any embellishment on our part. Okay, that's our job. Okay, incredibly important during Hurricane Sandy. Okay, we lived and died by this stuff. We must have sent thousands of these, at least thousands, probably in tens of thousands. Okay, because if your phone was working, the guys in so Long Island, if you look on the map, is an island, right, in New York, and it's a pretty long island, and that's why they call it a Long Island. North and South Shore. So our 2 shores are on the north side and south side. The storm hit most feverishly on the south side of Long Island, and they were hit by far the worst. Yes, somebody's agreeing, right?
I took 6 foot of water in the first floor of the house.
Yeah, it wasn't funny. And obviously he didn't have phones, and if he had a cell phone, even the cell towers didn't have power. So if he needed, and I'm sorry, who was this on the South Shore?
Yeah, Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Listen, it didn't matter if we had cell phones. We were sitting at 1 o'clock in the morning at the gas station waiting for gas, right?
That's right. There was no gasoline.
Nope.
This is Long Island. This is New York. You know, this is New York. We're New Yorkers here. You know.
We made it through.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said we made it through.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is New York, you know, the place that everybody thinks the Sopranos live, you know, that kind of place. So, but a lot of the people in the South Shore, even the North Shore, couldn't get message to their loved ones in other parts of the United States. So we handled thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these. I must have handled 1,000 by myself. I'm one of the few lucky people that had power and phones. So I spent my afternoons just making phone calls to people in California and Colorado, a lot of relatives in Colorado, all over the place, just to tell them, hey, we're okay, you know, your family's fine, and then they would give me a message back, and then I would transmit that to the nearest ham operator, and they would walk to that person's house or drive to that person's house or swim to that person's house, depending on what the case was, and would hand them this document, you know. And that, you know what? That's incredibly important. You know, I never understood the value of that, I'm ashamed to say, until it happened. Anyway. All right, cool. Just check just go on the web and put down ham radio or amateur radio, whatever you want, net, and you'll find one, okay? And there's all sorts of different things, okay? Emergency communications, okay, they go over this. Again, we want to be professional about this. We don't want to have any rumors. We don't want to spread any rumors. We don't want to embellish anything. that's kind of what we do. That's what makes us so invaluable. That's why we have all the frequencies to use. Okay, I'm sure I discussed this with you guys. You can't use amateur radio for money, ever, ever, ever. 2 exceptions. If you're on a radio club, like we meet Monday nights, we always do a swap and shop, and people can buy and sell their radios secondhand. That's permissible. And the other thing is, if you're a teacher and teach ham radio in the course of your employment, that's it. You're allowed to use that too. That's the only 2 places you can make money. Okay? Only the FCC may declare a temporary state of emergency. That is a question. So they're going to tell you about the president, and they'll tell you about the FBI, and all these other things. Negative. FCC is the only one allowed to declare an emergency, a communications emergency. Okay? All right. Our job as ham radio people is to protect life and property, and do whatever you need to do, okay, to protect life and property. Nobody's going to come down on you, okay? And they say, and this is an FCC rule, in an emergency situation where there is immediate risk of life or property and normal forms of communications are unavailable, you may use any means possible to address that risk. Okay? So do whatever you need to do. Okay? I don't care if you go on extra bands or general bands, or I don't care what you do. Okay? If you can talk to somebody and you have an emergency, do it. Okay? That's it. All right. Distress calls, there are several. Okay? In continuous wave, in Morse code, it's SOS. Okay? If you happen to be on a ship of any kind, ship meaning boat or aircraft, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday is the acceptable means. And on ham radio, it's break, right? So if you say break, the world stops spinning. No question. Please don't test that unless you really have an emergency. You say break, somebody's already dialed 911 waiting for your message. So before you tell them what the emergency is, they'll be dialing 911, okay? And that's what you want, okay? So please be careful with that, all right? You would state your call sign. Hi, this is W2BMP. The nature of my emergency is, that's all I want to know, okay? By the time you give them their call sign, they've looked up your address. They know where you are. And they'll ask you, are you at your QTH? You'll answer yes or no, and you'll have people coming to help you as soon as possible. Okay. All right, cool. Then you talk about public service communications. We will do a lot of that stuff. We do a lot of the, for example, the cancer walk, the diabetes walk, the marathon, the Boston Marathon. All of these things we will do to benefit first responders, police, fire, that kind of stuff, and we provide backup communication for them. Tactical communications, if you're on a marathon, for example, nobody wants to hear W2BMP, they will assign me a tactical communication, okay? So I'll be at mile marker 3, MM3 is my tactical call. I don't need to use my call sign. However, okay, I do have to say my call sign every 10 minutes that I'm on. So if I'm on for a prolonged period of time, MM3 is not sufficient. I'll say MM3 W2BMP and then my information. Okay. Aries and races, everybody knows how I feel about that, right? So Aries is what I'm most associated with. At least, you know, one of our young ladies decided to join one of the Aries. It's a really worthwhile organization. At least know who they are. At least speak to them. You may have to take 1 or 2 courses on protocol, administrative protocol. Take it, bite the bullet. They're there to help. They're just ham radio operators just like you, okay? And you never know where you're going to need them. RACES is the official FCC federally recognized emergency service for civil emergencies. However, RACES, because of politics, has kind of diminished in power. ARES has stepped up to the plate. We don't care who you voted for. We don't care who you're going to vote for. We don't care what your position is on anything, okay? We're here to help each other. So, and the community, certainly. So RACES is a little bit more politically oriented. I guess I shouldn't say that. But ARES doesn't care. So ARES is what I suggest you do. They'll teach you how to make an emergency kit. They'll help you. They're just amazing, okay?
Oh.
And they are first responders for Red Cross, Salvation Army, National Weather Service, National Guard, because we don't care what your affiliation is. Okay?
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I had the opportunity Saturday to meet with the local RACES and ARES group. They were putting on a weather seminar, National Weather Service. It was really interesting.
Yeah, they do a big thing on national weather. It's called Skywarn. Yeah.
Yep.
And man,
There
oh
were
man,
about 80 people there.
Yeah, they do a hell of a job. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because you never know with the weather, what's happening, and these guys will alert you right away. Great. I can't say enough about them. Okay.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was at your Ham Fest this weekend, and I got to meet with Dave Atkins, for your wife.
Yeah.
And spent a good 20 minutes, a half an hour with him, and was very, very impressed by RACES and also ARES, and he just kind of defined or distinguished them a little bit for me. But he also said that within, I guess it was within RACES, there's 2 levels. There's a full volunteer, and then there's like a volunteer reserve.
That's right.
So you get trained. So if you have a full-time job, you're working, you're busy, you can still be involved in this, and made a lot of sense.
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding me. Yeah, there is in ARES there's a full-time and there's a reserve. Certainly, at least become reserve members for your own well-being, and you'll get on the net with them. Our ARES meets on Monday nights at 8 p.m. At least you know who these people are. You know where to go if there's an emergency, and you know what to do, where the shelters are. I mean, it's really amazing. Okay, so just for your own well-being and the well-being of your family, they're a good resource for you. Okay, use them, don't use them, that's up to you. But ARES is just amateur radio guys just trying to help each other. I really suggest that you do that. So, emergency communications training, they will teach you how to handle a net, how to work within a net, and it's worthwhile. There are 2 courses that they give, and I do teach them in the fall, okay? And it's all about protocol and that kind of stuff. And then we talk about our emergency equipment. What I do is I have a little Baofeng, okay, that I keep in my emergency kit. I bought a solar charger from Amazon.com for $19 because the Baofeng charges by USB, okay? You can charge it by USB, and it doesn't need a lot of power to charge. And I just leave that in a clear waterproof case, and it's always charging. Heaven forbid I need to use the radio. It's there. I don't worry about it too much, and it only cost me a couple of bucks. So I will never be without it again after Hurricane Sandy. Okay. All right, cool. They talk about special activities. I'm not putting these activities down, folks. If this is what you're into, God bless you, and I hope you do really well. Not my cup of tea. They call it DXing Awards and Contesting. DXing is talking to foreign stations. It is thrilling, okay? I've talked to the North Pole, the South Pole. I've talked to the space station. I've talked to everybody. And that's great. It's great fun. And they have contests for this, okay? And they give out certificates. If you like that, go for it. If you don't like that, don't go for it, you know, whatever. The contests are very, very, very short and abrupt. There was a contest this Sunday. You'll hear CQ, 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 blah, 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 blah. CQ, 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 blah, 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 blah. And you'll hear that over. It's a recording, okay? And they pause for 4 or 5 seconds, and the idea is to make as many contacts as possible within a given time period, usually 24 hours or 48 hours. Well, you don't get to talk to these people because you're just one contact. He or she is looking for thousands of contacts in that time period. So he'll say to you, you know, whatever his call sign is, he'll say, W2BMP, you're 5 by 9, 5 meaning your audio is good, signal strength is 9 out of 9, and you're number 27, so I'm his 27th contact. That's it. That's all he wants to say to me. Not how are you, where are you, could care less, okay? So in order for him to get credit, you have to enter it into your logbook. Logbook of the World is some other logging system. And then he gets credit for the call, okay? All right. So I'm not going to say too much about that because I don't really care about it too much, to be honest with you. So maybe I'm a bad influence on you guys. But it's good. If you like the, you know, they have contests, you know, how many countries you've talked to. There's 15 countries, 30 country awards, 48 countries, how many states you talked to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you get points. What you do with the points, I don't know. But anyway, enough of that. This is the coolest thing in the whole world, okay? So the field day event, okay? So the last weekend of June, every amateur radio club on the planet Earth, okay, gets together and shuts down all of their power, goes out to the middle of a field, and then tries to talk to each other, okay? On every band, any way you can, forever. Used to be a United States thing, just United States, and then a lot of other countries started to join in as well. So the last weekend of June, look for the field day nearest you. Okay, here on Long Island there's about 10 of them. And we set up temporary antennas, and we use generators and batteries and solar power, whatever. And we just test. It's actually a test. It's a contest of sorts, but the contest is secondary to actually testing to make sure that if we had no power, we could still get information as far as we needed to get them. Okay? So we do all sorts of weird stuff, and we have parabolic antennas and Yagis and towers and everything we can think of. Okay? And it's a lot of fun. It runs for 24 hours straight, okay, right through the middle of the night. So, yes, we have people at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it is a blast, and they have barbecues and stuff, and it's awesome. Okay, so field day, definitely look into it, and if you want to spend a lot of time there, just go and check it out. You'll have a lot of fun, okay? Okay, and satellites, we talked about satellites. Oscar is the universal satellite. So all amateur satellites are known as Oscars, and they relay between, as I explained to you, 2 meter and 70 centimeter, and there's a gazillion satellites. There's a new satellite was just sent up by Japan that only handles amateur radio communication, and they transmit weather, and they transmit magnetic core information, geomagnetic disturbances, a whole bunch of stuff. It's really cool. Okay. And I need you to know what a beacon is. Okay. And they have beacon satellites. Okay. And that's all you. Oh, and if you see, this is not on the exam, not on this exam. It's on the general exam. Okay. So for those of you going on for the general cram course, whenever you see this term, Keplerian element, anything Keplerian, it means satellite. Okay? So one of the questions will be, you get a 22.44 element from a Keplerian source. It came from A, and then choice A is ham radio operator, cell phone, and then in there is satellite. So you see Keplerian, it equals satellite. Okay. All right, cool. Then they have LEO, low Earth orbit. So these are satellites spinning in low Earth orbit. There's upper Earth orbit, elliptical orbits, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Cool. And then this is how to talk to the space station. I hope you do that. It is a hoot and a half. Okay. Special modes. We do transmit video. It's called slow scan television. Okay. And you can send it over amateur radio. Not the best thing you've ever seen. It's certainly not high def, okay, but you can do that, okay. And meteor scatter and moon bounce. One of my favorite things is to bounce my signal off the moon. And using a Yagi antenna, simple Yagi for a couple of bucks, and you can bounce it off meteorites. You can bounce your signal off of the moon. You can bounce it off of anything, okay? And this is very, very common, moon bounce at night, okay? Depending where night is for you, you can get some really long distances, okay? And you can get pretty far. Okay, radio control. I know at least a couple of you are into FPV, stands for first person video on radio control for drones and airplanes and that kind of stuff. You do need an amateur radio license for that. And it is important that you know that amateur radio used for this purpose is known as telecommand signal. It's on the test, right? So telecommand means that you send a signal to the aircraft, remote control aircraft, it responds. All right? All right. If you get information back from that aircraft, that's known as telemetry. Okay, so we send the signal to the aircraft, it responds, hopefully, that's telecommand. We get information back from that model or that aircraft, it's known as telemetry. Okay, amateur radios, people can transmit up to 1 watt. And don't let that fool you. You can go pretty far on 1 watt, okay? And if you use the frequencies on the 75 megahertz band, for example, you must identify by your call sign on the transmitter, okay? Especially if you're flying a drone these days, okay? All right. And the reason you need it for first-person video is you're transmitting it at about 1 watt. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll have one for you here next time. I happen to be a pilot as well as a FPV pilot. They're goggles that you wear, and they don't let in any light. And there's 2 little TV monitors in there, and on your aircraft you hook up a little tiny little video camera, and you feel like you're in the aircraft, right? That's what.
Do you fly a model airplane to do that, Joe, or a quadcopter or something like that?
Yep. Answer is yes. Yeah. Answer is yes to all of them. They even race cars.
Oh yeah.
They never. Yeah, and they use cameras, first-person video, and it gives you the feeling that. Yeah. And you know what they just got into, which is very cool. I was never into model railroading until I saw this. They have model railroads with those little cameras in them. That's a hoot, man. That is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Okay, we're up to Chapter 7. Any question on Chapter 6? All right, cool. We're going to go by Chapter 7, licensing. So we're governed by Part 97 of the FCC rules. Your license is good for 10 years. Okay, if you don't renew your license, you're very, very bad. Okay, and if you don't apply for a within a year, they revoke your license. This is what your license will look like when you get it. Okay, they used to mail it to you. They do not mail it any longer. Once you pass your exam, about 3 or 4 days later, your name will appear on the FCC database, fcc.gov, and there'll be a link. You click on it. You give them your FRN number, okay, and then they'll get down. You can download your license so you can print it. I think that's cheesy in my regard, but anyway, it's cheesy, okay. And then the license, okay, it comes in this part and that part. So you cut the license here, okay. Oh, don't cut it there. So you cut it here on the dotted line, and you take this and you put this in your purse or your wallet. All right. The reason is, in most states, you're not allowed to use your cell phone unless it's hands-free. There is, well, I shouldn't say there is. There isn't. Most amateur radio, you're going to need a microphone, and in many states, carrying this license, if you're pulled over for talking, you are exempt from that, okay, from that restriction. So you can use, in some states, can use your ham radio if you carry this with you. So if you get pulled over, you show the police officer that you're a licensed ham radio operator, you're licensed by the federal government, and if they're in a good mood, if they are in a, let you go. Joyce, I love you. I'm sorry, you lost me. I'm sorry, Joyce. I don't know how to fix that. Wait a minute, let me just respond to try logging in again. Okay. All right. All right. So that's it. Everybody knows the 3 types, right? There's technician, general, and extra. You're finishing up your technician. General is next. Extra, you know, part of the extra exam is you have to climb to the top of a mountain. You put on a white robe. You let your beard grow, right? Your hair and your beard is completely white. So is your robe. And we're there to answer any questions that any other amateur radio operator is willing to give us, okay? So if you're an extra, your job is to do what I'm doing, is to teach other ham radio operators, and it's very mysterious. No, it isn't. And Robert asked a question, is that applicable in New York State law? I know we have an attorney in the group, and I happen to be an attorney as well, a retired attorney. The answer is, Who's our other attorney here? David, are you the attorney? Somebody was the attorney.
No, it's Frank. And
oh,
John.
Frank.
John's not on today, but we're both,
okay.
we're both retired.
Frank, are you an attorney?
I'm retired, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Once you are, you always are, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess so. You can't un-attorney an attorney. That's true.
I don't think you can get out of it.
Yeah, I think we're in the hot seat. So, Frank, there was a ruling in one of the courts in upstate New York on this, and the ruling was that ham radio, if you're licensed, did not qualify as an electronic device that must be used in hands-free.
What state was that?
In New York.
California wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I don't know. So you're a California attorney?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have any knowledge about whether that's legal in California?
I haven't, but John Dundas, who isn't on today, he might know. He's the extra guy.
Yeah.
He might have an idea of that.
Yeah. Robert, to answer your question is, we like to think that it's so. There is a decision in some superior court in upstate New York that said it was okay. If you check on the LImarc website, look under legal, there, we have a copy of that letter from the judge saying actually the ruling itself is that 100%. I'm not really sure, Robert. I don't. I've never run into a problem, but I hooked mine up via Bluetooth, so I use my radio the same way I use my cell phone in my car. So I don't know the answer. I don't want to give you the wrong answer, Robert. I don't want you to get in trouble and you tell a couple, Joe Gomez says it's okay. All right. So I don't really know. The verdict's out on this, okay? Okay. These are the requirements. This is the test you're taking, the first one. So you're required to get 26 correct, okay? And they go up from there. Examinations, there's going to be 3 people there, at least 3 VE volunteer examiners. You answer it's multiple choice. They put a template on your answer sheet. And for this you need an extra, okay? So they're going to check off which ones you got wrong. They add them up. If you got more than 26, you passed. And if you got less than 26, you got to do it again, okay?
Joe, do we get a second chance?
No.
No?
No, you get a second chance, but you got to pay for it.
Oh, that's okay.
Not on the same $15.
But
okay?
while you're in there, if you failed, you could do it again by paying another fee.
That's right. You can take it again. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys everybody here should have no problem. The cool thing is here, if you take your technician's exam, okay, and at the same session, and you pass it, at the same session, you can take your general exam and not pay a fee, okay? So when you go in for your technician exam and you pass it, you can immediately take the general exam. And if you pass it, you walk out with a technician and a general, okay? So my suggestion to you is, and it's tough because I know you guys are going to be a little rattled taking the exam, but if you want, even if you don't take the cram class for general, take it anyway, and at least study the questions, okay, and see what I'm going to ask you. Not so hard, okay? Even without, studying for it, you will probably get at least 15 or 20 of them right, okay? Because the general is very close to the technician, all right? So that's my suggestion. Other people disagree, but hey, it's free, and for free, take it. All right, cool. So they give you this form, they give you this form 605, you fill it out, and this is why you need your FRN number, okay? So you don't have to put in your Social Security number up here. I recommend that you get an FRN number and not use your Social Security number. I have no idea where these things go. It goes up to the ARRL, and it goes to the FCC, and why look for trouble, right? They can't get a new credit card on your FRN number, so I suggest you get that. This form here on its side is what you end up with. 3 VEs will sign them with their call sign. They'll say that you passed these elements. There are 3 elements. There's 3 elements. There's technician, general, and extra, and they'll say you passed, and that's great. This is not your license, okay? And your license will not be activated until you're, very important, you remember this, your license is not active until it appears in the FCC database, about 3 or 4 days after you take your exam. Right? So you may not walk out of there and transmit. Negative, negative, negative. Okay? Okay. So that's what it looks like. And then you'll go to the fcc.gov on the Universal Licensing System. You'll type in your name, and away you go. Would you have to register for both exams prior to going in? Karen asked. The answer is no. Most places are just walk-ins, and tell them you want to take the general exam. They will ask you for identification. Your driver's license will be one of them, and then just one other form of identification, library card, whatever. You need one picture ID and then one other thing. And if you pass the technician, they'll give you, and you want to take the general, they'll give you a new application, and yes, you have to show the 2 IDs again. Why? I don't know. That's your tax dollars. That's your tax dollars at work. And Karen says there's no walk-in exams where you are. No exams or no walk-ins, Karen? Or no clubs?
Just no walk-ins.
Okay. Some clubs are like that. Some clubs want to know how many people are coming in. In our club, anybody can walk in. We had a ham fest on Sunday. Anybody can walk in off the street and go for a test. No problem. Okay. Okay, so your license is good for 10 years. I told you that. Okay. If your license is lost or destroyed, you can replacement from the FCC. No longer required. It's now done online. You type in your FRN number, and you can print your license again. Okay. That went into effect last month. Okay. All right, cool. All right. Anybody can operate a ham radio. Anybody, as long as you have a licensed operator sitting with you. Okay. So you are responsible for unauthorized operation, and that kind of makes sense, right? And this number is wrong, by the way. I happen to know for a fact there's 792,000 currently licensed hams. Unauthorized operation, you're still responsible. Make sure that people can't get in there and get into trouble. It's for two reasons. Number one, you don't want somebody doing something strange in the air. And number two, for safety. Remember, if you touch the back of your radio where the antenna connection is, especially if you buy a 100-watt radio and you hit transmit, you will get a serious burn at least. Okay? Okay, cool. Station inspects personal information. You know, they put your personal address and that kind of stuff. We discussed that already. If you move, you must notify the FCC online that you've moved. They want to know where you are. And station inspection, I've never seen one in my entire life since 1968 when I started. So I've never seen one, never heard of one, never heard of anybody having one. So I don't know. They say these are very rare, and there's only reason to believe. I have yet to hear of one. Okay. All right, cool. FCC site, I'll let you play with that all by yourself. It's not on the exam. Okay. Have fun with that. It's like every other government site. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. Your FRN number, make sure you apply for one. I strongly recommend it. If you did not apply for one, on your license you will be assigned one, and it will clearly state your FRN number. So if you didn't get one and decide to use your Social Security, that's fine. When you get your license, it will display your FRN number. Okay. Please make sure you know what your privileges are as technicians. Okay. You won't get, honestly, you won't get into trouble if you go someplace else. It'll just really upset the person you're talking to because they can't log that call. And technically, it's illegal for them to talk to you if you're outside of your frequency. Okay. The reason for this is not to be hard-nosed about it. The reason for this is we want you to be careful with the power. Okay. Truly and honestly. That really is the intent of this. Okay. So we don't want you going someplace you're not. You're going to put a little bit more power in and then a little bit more power. Remember, you can buy this stuff without a license, right? You put it in a linear amplifier, you're going to hurt yourself or hurt somebody in your family. So we want you to be careful with that. That's the main reason. This is the band plan. I'm going through this really quickly, okay? These are your HF privileges, 80 meters, 40 meters, 15 meters, and 10 meters, okay? Be careful with that. All right. All right. And these are the various digital modes that you can play with, CW, data, image, blah, 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 blah. All right, cool. None of this stuff is on the exam, except knowing that you can only communicate within the bands that you have privileges. Okay? All right, cool. Power limits, okay? The maximum that you're allowed to use is 1,500 watts peak envelope power. That's the maximum you're allowed to use, okay, as an amateur radio. Okay, that's me, you, everybody, okay? So you want to be careful with that. These are your band limits, power and band limits, okay? As a technician, you're limited to 200 watts, okay, on most of these HF bands. Why? Because you'll get a bad burn, but you won't kill yourself. if you accidentally touch your antenna transmitting up to 200 watts, you will remember it. It will leave a mark, okay, but you won't kill yourself, okay? If you go up to 1,500 watts and you're not sure of what you're doing and hit the transmit button, it could kill you. So and that's the reason for that, okay? All right, cool. So that's what your power maximums are. There are no radios off the shelf that transmit at 200 watts, or not a lot of them anyway. Most of them are 100 watts, which is more than you'll ever need if you put up a halfway decent antenna. And that's it. And off you go. Okay. There are some bands, okay, that we share with other people, primarily the Forest Department, okay? 60 meter is one of them. 60 meter, we're only allowed certain channels, all of us. So whether you're a technician or extra, and we share. The other one of that is 30 meters, where phone is not allowed. Right? I had a question from Asher. With the FRN number, did the FRN registration, I did the FRN registration, do they mail you something? No, just go to the FCC site and type in your name, and your FRN number should be there. They'll ask you some kind of security question, like what's your address or your phone number or something, and they should display the FRN number, okay? Or they'll send you an email, however you listed the email, with your FRN number. Okay, primary and secondary allocations. So we share two major bands, 30 meter, no phone, right? That's shared by a whole bunch of different agencies. FEMA is one of them that shares 30 meters. So we want to be careful with that. And 60 meters most commonly with the Forestry Department, okay? And it does get very, very busy. That includes the bands for forest fires, right? So you don't want to get in the middle of them, you know, doing rescue operations during a forest fire, right? So be careful with that, all right?
Joe, can you get on those bands and just listen?
You can. You're only allowed 6 channels. Most radios will only go to 6 channels on 60 meters, none of them which you can listen to. There are some other radios where you can listen to, yes, and there's also military on 60 meters, but that's encoded, so you're just going to hear a bunch of junk. And the answer is yes, on some radios you can. Okay? All right, cool. Band plans. Okay, so band plans are made by it's a voluntary arrangement. That's what you need to know. All right, and they will ask you that on the exam. So band plans are made by band plan administrators, and it's a voluntary arrangement. They do change. Okay, they do change from time to time. So, okay. And that's it. International rules. I had a discussion with somebody, I think it was John, about international rules. We're governed by the ITU, okay, because the FCC doesn't have any authority outside of the U.S., and the ITU decides who we can talk to and who we can't. And if you want more information on that, just go to the ARRL or the ITU website. We are really allowed to talk to almost everybody. Some countries, for whatever reason, do require a permit. It doesn't cost anything. You must just tell them that that you are going to go to a specific country and you'd like permission to use your ham radio. They ask you for your call sign. I've never heard of any of them ever been denied for any reason, except for North Korea. So sometimes you need a permit. Most of the times you do not. It's covered by an international agreement for ham radio operators, and normally isn't a problem. Greg wrote me, says, I printed my FRN number on the spot. Greg, you want to say a few words on that? You just applied and it was ready for you right there? It's been a long time since I applied for mine. And Karen says, me too. So whoever asked the question, apparently you should have your FRN number right on the spot. Okay.
Hey, Joe,
Okay.
this is Craig up in Boston. We were in Bogota years ago, and I had brought down a weather band radio that had different bands to listen to, and they confiscated it from us because they thought you could actually communicate through it.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was it's one of those countries that you are not allowed to bring in any kind of communication radio.
You know what? So thank you for that. I've never been to Bogota. So maybe the best thing to do is to check with the ARRL site and just in the search box type in radio operations in a foreign country. I was on that site last week, and there's a whole gigantic list. I mean, I got tired of reading the countries' names. I'm ashamed to say I didn't know where some of those countries were. That it was okay. I don't remember if Bogota was there, but if you tell me it was, it was. So
again,
check.
this was 10 plus years ago, but
yeah,
it was amazing that what I thought was a simple radio that they had an issue with.
Yeah, they probably confiscated it and sold it on the black market. I think that's what really happened. So anyway, check. So just check to to be careful. I went to England and France with my wife for our 41st wedding anniversary. I brought my radio with me. I didn't have any problem. No issue at all. All right. But anyway, so here they discuss this amateur operation. We are in Region 2. Please remember that. So we're in Region 2 of the ITU, and they talk about this at length, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right. Permitted contacts and communications. Some countries do not recognize amateur radio. That number is very, very small. Most countries now do. Since the publishing of this manual, I think most countries have joined the ITU on that, and there normally isn't a problem. Okay. Okay. So they talk about this prefix and suffix stuff and the different call signs that there are, and how to figure it out. You can read about this. No big deal. They were using this a while ago. What letters went with what states, so you could figure it out and what section you're in. There's so many new applicants per year on amateur radio that I don't know that that's still in effect. But anyway, you can read about it. Okay. Russians, yeah, that one is true. Russian amateur radio operators start with the letter U, and pretty cool. Anyway, so this group no longer applies. So this is Group A, amateur extras. So Dave Akins, AK1NS, he's an extra because he's allowed to use A, but I'm an extra, and I use W. I like W. And actually, that's a vanity call on my part. My original call sign was KD2BMP. I just didn't like the KD2. I like the W better. So I changed it. You can have vanity calls. My wife is a vanity call. Her name is Cecilia Teresa Gomez. So her call sign is W2CTG. Okay? So you can get vanity calls. So you don't really need to know this. Table 7.6. It's not really used too much anymore. I know plenty of extras that have KD2 calls, and I don't think anybody cares, to be honest with you. Okay. Anyway, again, it's important for you to, tell everybody where you are, whether your station is portable, and that kind of stuff. If you really want to get a lot of attention, just say you are pedestrian mobile, your call sign, W2BMP pedestrian mobile. I do it all the time. Everybody wants to talk to me. So if you're feeling lonely, strap your radio onto your waist, go outside, and say pedestrian mobile. Everybody on the planet Earth will want to talk to you. They'll trip over each other. Okay, cool. If you pass your general exam, okay, you keep your current call sign, and you'll just use /AG for acting general. All right. So if you just take your technicians and wait a while, and then take your general, and you pass your general, a couple of months from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now, you can exercise general privileges the moment you leave your exam. You just use /AG for acting general. Okay. Same thing for extra. You go for your extra, and you can, as soon as you pass your exam, you can use your extra privileges. It's just AE, acting extra. Okay. And then choosing your call. Talk about vanity. Knock yourself out. Okay. Club and special event call signs, they will issue you special call signs for special events like the marathon. We had, what, 250,000 people in the New York City Marathon. They gave it a special call sign. And I think we had, it was 250 amateur radio operators every couple of yards in case somebody needed help. Okay. All right, cool. And we have finished with Chapter 7. I want to finish this if we can, guys, just so that we can work on the exams next. I'd like to make sure you guys are all prepared and ready to go, and I can answer any questions. So hang in there. I promise this will be the last time I talk this much. Control operators, they're the guys who actually making sure that we follow the FCC rules. So when you're at your station, you are the control operator, okay? And you must be licensed by the FCC. So the question is, if your niece comes over and she wants to talk on the ham radio, can she do that? The answer is yes, as long as you're sitting right next to them, okay? So if you came over to my house right now and you sat here and you and I were working on this together, you would have extra privileges. So my privileges are impugned to you. So you could go out and talk to anybody you like. We could crank it up to 1,500 watts. We could wreak all sorts of havoc. As soon as those privileges are suspended, I must be in control at all times. Okay? All right, cool. That's all that means. Unlicensed operators, again, at field day, under your direct supervision, under your care, custody, and control, knock yourself out. Okay? All right. However, you walk out of the room, no. Okay? Identify Andy Eubanks. How often do we have to identify?
At least every 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Absolutely. So I don't care if you're in the middle of whatever you're in the middle of, okay? Stop what you're doing. Most repeaters will warn you, and they'll say, it is time to identify. And you'll say your call sign, W2BMP, okay? And then they talk about these other self-assigned indicators and all sorts of stuff. Just different things for different events. For example, we here in New York on Long Island celebrate when Lindbergh took off from Roosevelt Field on his flight to Paris, and we celebrate that every year, and we're given a special call sign to commemorate that. And stations from all over the world want to talk to us. It's just fun. I know we need to get out more. Okay. Cool.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
So when you're in conversation with somebody on the radio, and your 10 minutes is up, just in the middle of your conversation, you got to say your call sign.
Yep, that's the way it works.
Huh. Okay.
And I'll tell you, and what I've seen recently is that I guess with all the and stuff like that, they're being extremely careful. I did know somebody who did not identify in 10 minutes, and the FCC got on their case. Okay? Slap on the wrist, but I guess Homeland Security is on their case, I guess. I'm guessing here. Okay?
Didn't Homeland Security just lose like 50,000 jobs?
I don't know. I hope not. I really hope not. I hope not. I hope it's just some political mumbo-jumbo. So I have to give you my definition of politics, folks, just so you know what my position is. politics is really two words. Poly meaning many, and ticks meaning bloodsuckers. That's how I feel about it, okay? So that's my, that's all I'm going to say about that, okay?
Joe, are you born and bred from New Yorker?
Am I a born and bred? Yes, I am. Born and bred, yes. Born and bred New Yorker, yeah. And I have so had it with politics, I can't begin to tell you. And the older I get, the more disgusted I get. Anyway, enough of that. So anyway, again, we talked about special event stations. And I'm sorry, I left this out. Automatic identifications. All repeaters will identify automatically, okay? And special event stations like that LImarc thing, they give you some really cute call sign, I guess like LImarc ship or something, and it's a lot of fun. Okay? All right, cool. All right, I have some questions. I'm tired of talking. So Frank Jameson. Frank, how are you? Frank, you there? Did I put him to sleep? Poor guy.
Frank's trying to get his microphone on. Can you hear me now?
I can. So I have a question, Frank.
Uh-oh.
Why do you say no? Come on.
Go ahead.
Frank, if I say I'm getting Frank, we're talking to each other, right? And all of a sudden, Frank, I have QRM. What does that mean?
That's not man-made.
No, that is man-made.
No, M is man-made. N is not man-made.
Correct. Very good. Excellent. Just wanted to make sure you were paying attention. Okay.
I'm listening to it carefully.
All right. All right. Cool. Okay. So harmful interference is defined as anything that interrupts our normal conversation, and sometimes that happens. The FCC does look into that. Okay. You just want to be careful with that. If somebody's purposely and harmfully interfering with us, you need to report it to the owner of the repeater or make some kind of log entry in that, okay? It's like if you see something, say something, especially in today's environment, okay? All right, cool. Third-party communications. And,
hey, Joe.
Yes.
I have a question. I don't have a setup yet, but I have a shortwave radio. And the other night I was listening, and some people were talking. And then there were two different people that were just, one was just whispering a bunch of crazy stuff, and one was in the background just saying oink, oink, oink continually. What do you do in a situation? Is that what you're saying, that you need to report something like that?
Yeah, yeah. If you're a member of a club, certainly record that interference and pass it along. Normally there's an RFI, radio frequency interference officer. In my club, for example, it goes to an email, abuse@limarc.org, which comes to me personally, and I very carefully record that, and I speak to the FCC weekly, and I submit a list of where the problems are. It is a problem, okay, and they're trying to get a handle on that. For many years, the FCC did nothing, and it's become a problem now with security. So now they're taking it a lot more seriously, so that's the best thing I can tell you to do, okay? So, yeah, unfortunately they exist. So these are the countries that have third-party agreements with the United States, which means that we can relay messages to and from these third-party conversations and communications directly, no problem. You'll notice I happen to be of Cuban descent. I have Cuban family in Cuba, and notice that I can relay information from Cuba, okay? Cuba not so much anymore, and the list goes on. And let's see if Brazil was Brazil's there, and I'm sorry, the gentleman that had the radio confiscated.
That was in Colombia, and I see it was on the list, Bogota.
Yeah, they probably changed their policy, yeah. Well, this is to relay communications. So if somebody in Colombia, gets on the air with you and says, hey, look, can you please give a message to my direct family, you're allowed to do that, and you're allowed to transfer messages.
I wrote it off as it was the years of the drug cartels and certain things, and that's what I figured it was.
Yeah, maybe that's it too. Anyway, you see it's a very, very long list. You will notice that North Korea is not on the list, okay? So that's the only one that I know of is a problem. Next item is everybody gets this wrong, and I'm not sure why they get it wrong, okay? So local control is what we're doing here. So we have the radio, we're controlling it. That's local control, right? Okay. I can access my, because I'm one of those nerd guys. I can control my radio from my iPhone or my computer because I have nothing else to do with my life. So that is known as remote operation. So I can be in my office and then access my radio here at my house using the internet, and that's known as remote operation. Okay, very simple. The last thing is automatic operation. The most commonly associated thing is a repeater, okay, and it operates automatically. There's nobody sitting at our repeaters. We have 5 of them in our club, and nobody sits there hitting the button, okay? Operates totally automatic, okay? So a control operator is still needed, okay, still required. They can turn the repeaters on, off, etc., but they don't have to be there while the station is transmitted. Repeaters, beacons, and space stations can be automatically controlled, okay? As a matter of fact, if you speak to the International Space Station, they put your name in a drawing, and if they pull your name out, you have the privilege of waking up the astronauts, okay, in the morning by automatic operation. They send you a code. You put the code in. You turn on the space station, and it's the only time, please underline, the only time that you're allowed to broadcast music. Only time, okay? So they give you the thrill of turning on the space station, the International Space Station, and waking the astronauts up. I have never had that privilege. I know somebody who did, and it's a hoot. Okay?
Does it have to be classical music, or can we do rock and roll?
No, it's rock and roll. They request specific songs, and it's up to you to find the song I'd like to be woken up with, and then they give you a date and the code that's good for that date, and you can put in that code, and hopefully you'll fulfill their request. Okay, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so as repeater owners, we're responsible for the proper operation of the repeater. If our repeater is being used in an illegal or improper way, the FCC will pull our license, okay, and our repeaters with all of that equipment, and the many tens of thousands of dollars we have invested in it, would go down the toilet. All right, so we're very careful in my club to make sure that we don't have repeater abuse, nobody's using profanity. We do the best we can, and we're doing a much better job. We have technologies to track down these jammers and that kind of stuff. But, yeah, we're responsible for the operation of our repeaters.
Joe, is your club a volunteer club? Like, how is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a bunch of nerdy guys, just figuring out what makes things tick. Yep. Anyway, yeah, we're all volunteers, and we have some very, very extremely intelligent people. Again, I recommend to you that you Google LImarc, L-I-M-A-R-C, space TechNet, T-E-C-H-N-E-T, and you can go to a website that we have, and on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, listen to the TechNet. They talk about ham radio and oil burners, and they talk about anything that having to do with any machine or science. They talk about time, space, warp guys. We have many, many PhDs, physicists, scientists. It's really, really informative. I'm not going to tell you that I understand all of it. I do not, okay? But it's a hoot, okay? So prohibited transmissions, unidentified transmission, no, okay? You're not allowed, it's against the law for you to talk to anybody who hasn't identified, anybody giving a false or deceptive signal. False distress signal or emergency signal, that does not happen. It really doesn't happen. Everybody, even the jammers, know how serious that is, okay? And anything obscene or indecent, negative. This is a PG-rated system. No business communications of any kind, okay? You can't make any money on it, and then they give you some do's or don'ts on what you can and can't use, okay? No encrypted transmissions of any kind, okay? So by law, we're not allowed to use the 10 code, okay? So we can't say 10.4, we can't, that's considered encryption, okay? We can't rebroadcast anything. We may not broadcast music of any kind except, and you'll see it says it here, okay? Retransmitting the signals of another station is generally prohibited except when you are relaying messages or digitals from another station. Sometimes space stations are allowed to automatically retransmit, okay? All right, cool. And I think we're done there. All right, that's it, safety. Last chapter, and we're done. Okay, so here's the deal, folks. My specialty is in radiology, okay? It's what I do. I design the system that goes between the modality CT or the MRI and what the physician sees. So I don't design the MRIs or the CTs, but what I do is I design the interface between that machine and what the radiologist sees. That's what I do for a living, okay? I happen to be an expert in radiation, okay? And what I'm telling you is there's two types of radiation. There's ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. The stuff you see in the movies, okay, where somebody gets radiation sickness or a radiation burn, that's called ionized radiation, okay, and that we're going to put aside. RF radio frequencies is non-ionizing radiation. However, with that said, as a professional, okay, I don't even hold my cell phone up to my ear, okay? I have a Bluetooth headset. I leave my phone on my side in a case, and that's the way I talk on my cell phone, okay? I would not recommend to you, I don't care what this manual says, that you spend long periods of time on your radio if your antenna is nearby. That's my personal and professional opinion, okay? So with that said, please keep that in mind, especially if you start cranking up the power, okay? Remember that a microwave, right, emits waves, RF signals. That's what a microwave is, and uses a device called a magnetometer. That's how it cooks food. It works on radio waves, a type of radio wave. All right, enough said. Okay, cool. So we're going to get into that. A duty cycle, and I'm going to tell you what the manual says, but you already know my opinion, okay? Okay, so current. Remember, it's not the voltage, it's the amperage that kills you, right? So it shows you on this chart how much energy it would take for something to hurt you, okay? So this is 10,000 milliamps, okay? 10,000 milli, a millionth of an amp, okay? Be careful with this stuff, all right? It can kill you. And this is why we make you go through these 3 exams, okay? That you understand the risk to you, your family, and to everybody else. So be careful with this stuff, all right? All right, enough said. We're going to put the fear of God in you here, okay? And then they talk about avoiding electrical shocks, okay? Keep one hand in your pocket, never touch a pipe, okay, and that kind of stuff. Always wear insulated shoes, all right? Be careful, especially if you're working with an outdoor antenna, okay, et cetera, et cetera. Never bypass the safety interlock. That's how you turn off the power, and we put a padlock on it to make sure that no power is getting to where you're playing. Guess what it says here? Capacitors in a power supply can store after the circuit is turned off. Capacitors. That's why I went through and I think Anthony helped me out on this as well here. That's why we went through all this time and trouble to talk about capacitors, okay? Capacitors are like super duper batteries that can discharge instantly, okay? They can really hurt you. Be careful. If you open up a piece of equipment and you know what a capacitor looks like, right? It's not the one with the wire. The one with the wire around it, Frank Lucero, what's the thing with the wire around it? What's that device called?
Conductor.
An inductor.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, inductor you meant,
It'd
right?
be an inductor. I'm sorry, I'm having microphone problems.
No problem. Yeah, so the thing with the wires around it, those are inductors. The ones that look like little batteries, those are the capacitors. Please, 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 please be careful, okay? Be careful. Unnecessary jewelry. I saw some guy with a stainless steel chain seriously lean over, touch the capacitor, his day, okay? Never work on large electronic equipment alone in case something happens, okay? And you can never outrun electricity, okay? All right, cool. One of the questions that they're going to ask you is about grounding. Two possible answers. The only ones you need to know is you hook up all your equipment to a common ground, and the ground should never have sharp bends in it. Okay? Be careful with that. All right, cool. And they talk about this stuff, and we already discussed RF burns ad infinitum. Never touch an antenna when you're transmitting. It will ruin your day, okay? And then they talk about, and again, I don't want you to know this for the exam. I do want you to know that depending on how much amperage you're popping through, you need to have a certain gauge wire. The smaller the number, the larger the wire is, okay? So a 14 gauge wire is pretty small. 6 gauge wire is much fatter, okay? And be careful with that, okay? Okay. Lightning, we're going to put up antennas, folks. It's just what we do, okay? So make sure you have some kind of grounding source to that antenna, okay? Not so much for the handhelds, not necessary, but if you're going to put up a permanent antenna, make sure you have a counterpoise or something hooked up to a ground rod or some kind of ground, all right? Because by definition, those antennas become lightning rods. Okay. My favorite subject, RF exposure, okay? They go into this, they talk about it, and they talk about exposure limits and power density, okay? And they have a table. I don't know who came up with this table, and the table varies in frequency. So as you increase the frequency, the exposure limits change. And as you decrease frequency, the exposure limits change again, all right? I promise you, you're going to get so excited when you talk to your first person in Japan, that power level will go up because he can't quite hear you, and you desperately want to talk to this guy in Australia, okay? Be careful with that, please, okay? All right.
I know you are QRC, Joe, but what's the maximum limit you went?
So the maximum limit for all operators is 1,500 watts. That's up to extra. You have a limit as technician of 200 watts. Okay. So when you move up to general, you immediately get 1,500 watts, and that's the maximum legal limit. I must tell you that you'll find out soon enough, when you get on the air, people far exceed that. Okay, they hook up.
I know you always say exciting, like on 1 watt, made a contact with 1 watt is a achievement.
Yeah, so that's the fun part of it. For me, that's the fun part of it. What do I normally transmit at? 5 watts. if I'm being lazy, you know, it's one of those lazy days and I don't want to mess with the antennas too much, 5 watts. Sometimes, just for fun, I'll go up to 12 watts if I really want to talk to somebody. That's it. I never exceed that. I never exceed 12 watts. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. For me, that's the fun of it. You know, for me personally, I can certainly see going to 25 or 50 watts. And again, if you guys are new, you know, I've been doing this a very long time. You know, my expertise is in antennas and in QRP work. So I don't expect you to have, you know, many, many years of experience there. You'll put up a simple dipole. Fine, go to 100 watts. That's fine, you know. And then you'll see whom you can talk to a lot of people on 100 watts, right? And for my buddy there in Wyoming, you're going to have to move up to something that gives you maybe 50 watts to hit that repeater, okay? And that's okay. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to be up at 50 or 100 watts with your antenna indoor 5 feet from you and spend all afternoon there. I do not suggest you do that, okay? I suggest there will be a problem. Remember that by the
Incredible Hulk?
Yeah. Yes. Was there a question?
I said we'll turn into the Incredible Hulk if we do that?
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. You'll forget who you are for half an hour every once in a while. Let's put it that way. Yeah, you know, again, has there been an absolute scientific study? There have been some minor studies on this radiation exposure from non-ionizing radiation. They're inconclusive. I have a very strong opinion. As much as I don't have an opinion about politics, I have a very strong opinion about this. It does cause heat, okay? And if your brain is near here, near an antenna, and it's at, you know, about that height, or any tissue that you have, you can have issues. Even the FCC and the ARRL addresses it as maximum permissible exposure limits, okay? And you need to read this pretty carefully, okay? So what they're suggesting is a maximum possible exposure is rated in 6-minute intervals, okay? Not only are you being exposed to that radiation, the people around you are being exposed to that radiation as well. Now, I think Anthony's going to disagree with me. He had is Anthony here? The guy who had the 60 gazillion, yeah, is he?
Down here.
Yeah, so you had that 60 gazillion, megillion watt.
16 million watts.
Yeah, how did that make you feel?
I didn't like being there very long, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Most of the time when we worked on that, we turned that power down when we were working.
Yeah, especially if you're in close proximity to it.
Yeah.
Even being up at such very high power levels for a short period of time is not as bad as you're going to love this hobby, especially if you get into Aries and that kind of stuff. You're going to be on this all the time. Having that constant exposure, especially if your antenna is indoors, and some of us have to have them indoors. In this very office that I'm in, my 2-meter antenna is right by me. It's just a few feet from me. And if I need to use this radio on 2 meters, I'm very selective about when I use it. In my other room, where I have other radios, the antenna is outside, because that's the back of the house, and my wife lets me have antennas there. I'm not so concerned, but I still use a little bit of discretion in what I'm doing. Remember that ham radio equipment is not designed for continuous use. Okay, so it's good for the radio and it's good for you. Then they talk about duty cycles. What percentage of the time you can talk, depending on the mode that you're in. Okay. Again, folks, that's the official one. Okay. My opinion is they should all be about the same value. Be careful with it. Okay, the further the antenna is away from you, the better. But again, you have uncontrolled radiation exposure to people around you. So not so much. I'm sorry, 1 second. Not so much at 100 watts, but when you start cranking out 1,500 watts, please be careful. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On that site where we had all that power, the building and the offices that everybody was in, those were field-free rooms. Those were isolated from the signals.
Really?
We put, those were Faraday cages inside.
Yeah.
Every piece of steel in that building had to be bonded together, and there was actually copper screen and stuff in the walls.
Wow.
To protect.
Yeah, so thank you. Robin, I haven't blocked you from anything. Robin wrote to me, I'm blocked to ask a question. Can you unblock me, please? Robin, I don't have anybody. I'm going to hit the button anyway, but I don't have you blocked. Why don't you just type your question, and I'll do my best to answer it, Robin. For those of you that don't know what a Faraday cage is, that's a special structure that's supposed to shield you from electromagnetic pulse energy. It's very, very effective up to a point. And yes, that's an excellent analogy. For people that are exposed to long-term non-ionizing radiation, a Faraday cage is what we use. Okay? So just be careful. That's all I want you to do is be careful. Again, not so much of a problem right now at 100 watts, but I know a lot of you are going, okay. Robin, I acknowledge your message. I am not blocking you at all, so I don't know what the problem is. If you want, you can give me a call after class. My cell phone is 516-765-1948. Once again, 516-765. I'll even type it. That's my cell phone number.
I had that same experience. I just rebooted and logged out and logged back in, and it actually allowed me to type again.
Oh, okay. So Robin, well, Robin can type to me. I guess she just can't hear me. So Robin, if you want,
I logged out. I couldn't talk to you, and then logged out, logged back in, and everything was fine.
Okay, Robin, did you hear that? You want to try that? Oh, let me just type to her because she wants to talk to me. She has a question. Robin, please try logging out and back in. And I think she took my advice. Okay. So again, I want you to be careful with this stuff. Again, not a big problem at this power level. Don't spend. Come on, you know, let's be serious here. Just be careful with that. Okay. Enough said. All right. So they go into this formula, how they compute it. I do not agree with this formula. So. Again, I'm a ham radio guy. I have them all over the house. If you just use common sense, you'll be fine. Okay, and I've been using them for more years than I care to admit. All right, cool. So here they talk about evaluating exposure. Again, not so bad. 100 watts, 200 watts, you're okay. You get your general. You go out and you buy yourself some linear amplifiers. You're cranking out 1,500 watts. I need you to be really careful, okay? I don't want you getting hurt. All right, cool. And then they talk about maximum permissible exposure limits. Again, take a minute to understand this. Remember that whatever they say, I recommend you cut it at least in half, okay? All right, cool. So they talk about, this is physical, raising antennas. They have these towers that crank up, they crank down. We want you to be careful when you climb the antenna. You're going to take the general exam. For those of you taking the general exam, there is a procedure on how to clip yourself to these towers. I had the privilege of being on a 92-foot tower. I am a licensed pilot. I have been for over 40 years. I have never been so scared in my entire life. 92 feet, okay? No problem at 12,000 feet. 92 feet, big problem. Yes, sir.
Joe, this is Craig, the other pilot up north. We took a 152 over to California and flew across Arizona and saw those towers, and they said, would you climb one of those? And I said, no, I'd rather be above them. There's no way I would want to climb one of those towers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question. I never realized that 92 feet looked so high. And then, you know, they got me up there on the super-duper cherry picker thing. And I said, not too bad, not too bad. Whoa. And then, of course, the wind was blowing at 20 knots or something. Anyway, yeah, please be extremely careful. Write a check, okay? Get somebody who really knows what they're doing to climb up that tower. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that, okay? Okay. Notice what they say here. Just food for thought, guys, okay? Read this part here. Place mobile antennas on the roof or trunk of the car to maximize shielding of the passengers. Okay? That's it. That's all I'm going to say. So, all right. Again, I don't want to turn you off. There's never been a recorded history of anybody growing another head or anything else on ham radio, but just be careful with it. Okay? I beat it enough to death. Okay? I said my piece here. All right, cool. Mobile installations, they don't want you to operate in heavy traffic. Yeah, good luck with that here in New York and California. That's the time we're going to use it the most to find out where the traffic isn't. Don't make any complicated adjustments to your radio. I totally agree with that. I have everything in memory, so no biggie. All right, and I use a very basic, very simple. A question was asked of me in the mailbag, what do I do for mobile operations? So what I have is one of those cheap Baofungs, the 5-watt things. Cost me 38 bucks. I have a $19 antenna, okay? Magnetic mount. I own several cars. The car I use most frequently is my Hyundai. I love my Hyundai Santa Fe. I just put the antenna magnetically on the car. I talk through my Baofeng. Maximum output is actually 4 watts, not 5 watts. It's fine. I live in a congested area, so that my repeaters will catch me any place I need to go for the most part. I have no problem at all. I talk to everybody, okay? And if I park in the parking lot in the city, I just stop a block before, take out the magnetic antenna, throw it in the trunk. Nobody knows that it happens. Somebody steals it, I'm out 38 bucks. Okay? Not a problem. Okay?
So, Joe, I have that Tram 1185 amateur dual band magnet antenna. Is that good or no?
I own the same one.
All right, that's what I got, and I got the Baofeng, whatever you call it, with the 8-watt.
Yeah, that's fine too. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, good radio. Actually, the Baofeng 8-watt receives better also. So it has greater selectivity and better sensitivity. So that was a good investment.
Great, thank you.
No problem. So that's what I use, okay? Putting up antennas and supports, no. Never go through power lines, never go through a tray, okay? Most antennas. One of the things that I do, okay, is if I'm out hiking, I'll take a small radio with me. I make a little dipole. I'll show it to you next time. Very, very thin speaker wire, like 16-gauge speaker wire. Okay, very thin. And I have a little fishing weight on the end. And I have a little slingshot. And I shoot it up into the tree. Okay, so let's see if I can draw here. Hold on. I doubt it, but we'll try. Let's see. Nope, wrong place. Let me go here. Show you what I do. And it works fine. All right, so I have my little dipole here. All right. Again, 16, really thin wire. And it's got a little fishing weight, and then I put it into my slingshot, right? Poof, up into the tree, and I take the other end and I find another tree someplace. This is me, by the way, and I shoot it up here into another tree. I don't want to go by the power line, but I shoot it into that power line, not into the power line, into the tree, and I do my conversations, do whatever, gently pull. It comes down, hopefully. If it doesn't come down, I'm out like $2 for antenna wire, okay? so no biggie. But when you're putting up a permanent, that's for a temporary antenna. When you're putting up a permanent antenna, never through a tree, and never certainly by power lines. Okay? Obviously very important. All right. We're almost done here, folks. I'm sorry we're going a little bit over, but I want to get this done. And almost done. And this is the fashion statement when you're going to climb a pole. And you couldn't pay me enough money, okay, to even wear that. And when you take the general class, I'll tell you which way the hooks go, okay? All right,
Been there,
cool.
done that.
Have you?
Yeah, I went to the top of the tower.
How high was it? How high was it?
It was a 1,000-foot tower.
No way.
Oh, yeah, half-inch cable. Rode the little bosun seat up.
Oh, my God.
I think I sent you a picture of it.
No, that's okay.
No, I said I think I did.
I'll probably get seasick just from that.
That's some kahoonies. That's some big kahoonies.
You're not kidding, man. Now that deserves a round of applause. No way, Jose. Let me tell you. And listen, I had the privilege of working on the radio telescope in Arecibo in Puerto Rico on a project many, many years ago. And you had to climb a 25-foot ladder to get into the dish. And I almost passed out. So I can't even imagine 1,000 feet. That's not happening. All right, anyway, so that's it. That's pretty much all you need to know. We're at the end. And any other questions I can answer for you? All right. What we're going to do next time is I'm going to show you a couple of simple dipoles that I made so we can go over that. We're going to go over some exams. I'm going to send you guys, the people who signed up for the general cram course, I'm going to send you an email by the end of business tomorrow, and it'll tell you how to sign into the general class. We'll use a little bit different sign-in. If you don't get an email from me by Thursday, please email me. Somehow you didn't get on my list of people moving on to the general
Yeah, Joe,
class.
this is Craig, the flying chef up there. I didn't get that email.
Okay, I'll send it right over to you. No problem.
Oh.
And we're just going to go over exams. Let's see how you do. Again, I'm in no rush to get you out of here. So if we have trouble with the exams, we'll hang out for another day, another session. But that's all we're going to do from now on. Keep your questions coming. And the last thing I'm going to ask you for two things, everybody. I need you to do me a favor, okay? So I'm going to send you an email. I want you to go to our sponsor's site. Tell all your friends. It has nothing to do with any place but Long Island, okay? But in order to keep this program going, I want to make sure our sponsor knows that people do listen to all of the great ads I've run for them. So I need you to go to their site, click on a couple of different pages, and make believe you're having a good time. Actually, it's not a bad site. It's all about what's happening. Just to show a little sponsorship, I'll send you an email to that effect. And the second thing I want you to do for me is I'll send you another email on a survey. I know you all love me by now. I know you love me. But if I did something wrong or something wasn't clear or I didn't address something correctly, you won't hurt my feelings. You don't have to put in your name. It's totally anonymous. I need to know what I did wrong so I can fix it for the next class. Okay? It's good I've perfected this, so I want to make sure we're all good. All right? Okay, guys.
Joe?
Have a lovely... Yes, sir.
Real quick question. Some chat, and I don't think you answered it. You say that you communicate just fine on the 5 or 8, maybe max 12 watts. You want 100 or 100 watts if we can reach far places with little Baofengs, even, with the right antenna.
Baofeng is 2 meter and 70 centimeter, right? So it's really designed more for repeater use and pretty local use, up to about 50, 100 miles, okay? You can pick up skips, okay, where you could talk to somebody thousands of miles away, but that's less common than it is on HF. When you go to HF, you talk to people really far away all the time from the very first second. So, so your question is, why would I go to anything higher? Again, you guys are pretty new to this stuff. I don't expect design and stuff like that. So your efficiency won't be as great as it can be. So for now, people, will turn up the power. So if you buy something like an ICOM 7100, which is a beautiful radio, and you're not getting through, I think more because of inexperience, you tend to turn up the power.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great evening, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good night.
All right. You're welcome.